Episode 3 of The Bad Batch: The Replacements is out, and while it was not the most exciting episode, and it was a little bit shorter, there was a few things that it was still interesting to see. In the episode, it goes back and forth from Clone Force 99 and the situation on Kamino with Crosshair, so we'll talk about each of those separately for this video. In the last episode, Clone Force 99 escaped Saleucami after getting detected while the Batch was helping cut LeQuain and his family acquire chain codes in order to conceal their identity. At the start of episode 3, we see them traveling through hyperspace with damage taken to the ship as the capacitor gives out and they are dropped out of hyperspace and crash land on a moon. Once assessing the problem and identifying they needed a new capacitor, Omega reaches out and pulls out what she thought might be storing the spare part. As the group all stare at her in silence, Omega finally goes, "What?" Hunter then goes on to tell her, "That was Crosshair's weapon, kid." Wrecker blurts out that he misses Crosshair, and then a short debate is had about the inhibitor chips and how it might not have been his fault. Omega then reassures the chip did exactly what it was designed to do. Hunter quickly breaks up the moment and brings the team's focus back on the task of fixing the ship. I think we will see more involving the inhibitor chips, as in this episode, Wrecker is hit in the head during the crash and complains throughout the episode and seems to hold his hand in the exact spot where the chips are implanted. Also, Tech was literally working on a scanner to verify if the chips are in fact defective before they dropped out of hyperspace. So this seems to suggest that Wrecker's chip might be working now, and possibly like Crosshair's, where it's not at the level of a regular clone, but could pose to be a problem sooner than later. Tech and Echo head outside after putting on a rebreather to change out the capacitor as they notice claw marks on the ship that were not there before. As they go inside to inform the crew, a creature leaps out on the front of the ship with the replaced part in its mouth, then disappears. Tech states that it's probably an Ordo Moondragon that feeds off of raw energy. Hunter forms a plan and gets ready to head out, and Omega says that she is coming too. Hunter denies the request at first because of the creature and the danger. She reminds him that she is part of the squad too now. Little by little, we see the change in choices being made, and their acceptance of Omega's willingness to head out on dangerous missions is interesting to see how they are starting to adapt and change, with her being on board. As Hunter and Omega go out and track the Moondragon, she takes great interest in the way he is tracking and asks if she can learn to track like him too. He tells her that it's his enhancement and that Tech and Echo have theirs also. Omega then goes on to say, "and Crosshair," and also tells him that he shouldn't be mad at him, that it's not his fault. Hunter admits that he is mad at himself. They never leave anyone behind. She grabs Hunter's arm and tells him that we'll find a way to get him back somehow. As they reach to where the dragon and the capacitor is, Hunter is toppled by the dragon and gets his mask knocked off as the creature slips away once more with the part they need. Omega watches it scurry down into a hole that tunnels into its den area. She looks over at Hunter and sees that he is struggling to breathe and collapses to the ground unconscious. She quickly searches for his mask and puts it back on him. She tries to call for the guys but hears nothing back, so she grabs his blaster and heads down the tunnel. Omega tracks the creature to the area where the capacitor is and meets face to face with it. She noticed that it reacts to the beam of light from the flashlight and tosses it off to the side as it jumps over to it and munches on it, watching the flowing energy waves down its body. When Hunter regains consciousness and realizes where she went, he calls down to her, hoping she is okay. Omega had wanted to learn and track like him and tells him when she comes back to the surface that she tracked the dragon like he did. Completed the mission. Still unsure of what her abilities or enhancement traits are, but she seems to pick up on things quick and seems to mention again that she got lucky, still hoping to see something more concrete as to what she can do in the coming episodes. As they arrive back at the ship, Wrecker has a surprise for Omega, as earlier in the episode Hunter stopped him from taking her ration since they were low and she had willingly offered hers. He pointed out that she doesn't have a bed and now you want to take her food? Wrecker didn't complain really, as we have already seen he has a big heart. She opened her eyes to a little room that he made for her with lights as her own room on the ship. She fell in love with it and told him she never had her own room before. Definitely a great moment in the episode and a reason to love Wrecker just a little bit more. Back on Kamino, Crosshair's evaluation shows the chip amplification is successful, and he is still at optimum levels. Tarkin still has concern and questions as to how long he will stay that way. Admiral Rampart arrives on Kamino as Tarkin compliments him on his successful implementation of chain codes, which we saw in the last episode, basically so the Empire can track everyone in the galaxy. Tarkin asks Rampart how Project War Mantle is coming along, which is interesting because this is mentioned in the movie Rogue One without going into great detail as to what the project was, along with some other elusive things mentioned that was part of the Tarkin initiative. So in this episode, we are seeing how they are filling in the gaps between periods of when and how things are implemented. So we now know that Project Warmantle was the departure or phase out of clones and replaced with conscripted soldiers, which eventually became stormtroopers. As Rampart tells Tarkin, the project is on schedule and has already brought top recruits with him to start training with their new commander, meaning Crosshair. Rampart puts the idea out in the open that if skilled clones trained more elite squads like this, they could be a formidable army for the Empire. Tarkin, seeing the possibility of the partnership, still must see this in action to decide. Prime Minister Lamassu tells Tarkin and Rampart that conscripted recruits will never reach the same level of military proficiency and that their clones are trained since their creation. Rampart in a way deflects this statement by saying skills can be taught, but those who willingly enlist is where they see tremendous value. We then see Lamassu walk off quietly, and we could see he is very concerned about their operation no longer being looked at as essential. Crosshair and the squad are sent out to Onderon to wipe out Saul Guerrera's camp as a test, to see if they will succeed where Clone Force 99 failed. On the way there, one of the squad members openly asks why Crosshair was in charge, and that if clones were so efficient, why is the Empire scouting out recruits like them? A question that gets answered sooner than this soldier could know. After they move in on Saul Guerrera's camp, they find that he is no longer there, and the remaining rebels were about to meet him at a rendezvous point until they were all ambushed by Crosshair and his new recruits. One soldier remained and some civilians. Crosshair asks the soldier for information as to where Saul is and is told she wouldn't tell him anyways, and without hesitation, he shoots and kills her. He moves on to ask the civilians if they have anything that they would like to share, and when they tell him they don't know anything, that they were promised safe passage off-world, Crosshair decides they are no longer use for the Empire and is about to execute them before he is stopped. The same recruit that asked why he was in charge said that these were civilians and not Guerrera's soldiers. Crosshair tells him the reason he is in charge is because he is willing to do what needs to be done. His voice and how low his tone is here is incredibly scary sounding, especially in this moment where he fires his blaster right into his chest and kills him, then orders the rest of them to finish the mission as they follow his command and execute the innocent civilians at the camp. Crosshair is truly terrifying at that moment and should not be crossed, so to speak. At the end of the episode, we see Crosshair going back into the bunker with the new squad, where he looks over the wall as he remembers his other brothers. So it's interesting to see that even though he is the way he is now, he still remembers his brothers. With the success of the mission, Project Warmantle is left in the hands of Rampart, so we will be seeing more of him for sure. Lamassu and Nala Se showed concern during the episode, we have seen that, and they discuss with each other how their future with the Empire is not certain. Their clones must stay essential to the Empire, but Jango Fett's original genetic material has faded and no longer as effective. Lamassu tells Nala Se that they need to move to the next phase, and that if she is able to create a superior clone, they will be able to secure their future with the Empire. This moment made me wonder because Nala Se stated that she would need a direct source to be able to accomplish this, and that the enhanced clones would not be willing to return. It looks like they're going to be doing this behind the Empire's back, and could be why when they speak of needing a direct source, Crosshair is not even brought into the sentence. He is an enhanced clone after all. Lamassu said, we only need one, and with Crosshair now being a commander in Rampart's hands, that's probably why they might need one of the other clones, so it's kept secret. It will be interesting to see the whole process take place and if they're able to create a superior clone, and what or who we might get coming into the story. I hope we have more answers in the next episode and can dig deeper. This episode wasn't bad, but some would call it a filler episode. It had some memorable moments and some character development, but really looking forward to the next episode. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I have gotten behind with work and having some PC issues, and I wasn't able to make a video for episode 1 or 2, but if that's something that you would like to see, I can work on that as well. Thank you so much. You all stay safe out there, and may the Force be with you all.